Good evening. I think I'm live and hopefully the sound is working today because you know what? I tested the camera but not the microphone. Oh well. So, it's not Friday. Friday evening I will be at a Christmas event for the Society of Cosmetic Chemists along with my boss as the guest of one of our materials suppliers. So that should be interesting. Very much a work event, and I'm sort of looking forward to it. We'll see how it goes. It should be relatively small. I was told that it's much smaller than it has been in years past because, of course, COVID. Hello, Koala. I'm so glad you have come for me. Which reminds me, I really need to share a link into. It is not Friday. It is, I believe, Wednesday. I could be wrong about that. Anyhow, I need to share a link for Christine so she can listen while she's tiling. She has been doing an amazing job with her house, and that tile floor is just spectacular. So, aha, there we go. There's my link. Okay, I'm laughing at myself. That's just bizarre sounding. Then there he is. And there's the link. Okay, now I can focus on actually talking to y'all. Bearer of Ichor. Yes, he is. So, those of you that have watched before, hi Mom. Those of you that have watched before may note that the background behind me is different, and that's because a little bit ago I dragooned my husband in helping me rearrange the layout in here because it's an apartment. It's 2 beds, 2 baths, and that means we're fairly snug since one of the baths and one of the beds belongs to this boy, and I didn't really want to put my office space out in the public area because, well, I've done that before and it did not end well. Ah, yes, Josh, he's got the hat on for you. So, the last time I had my office in the public area, it did not end well at all. So, I didn't want to do that again, which means that our bedroom and the office share a room, a box. A box? Anyhow, long story short, I decided that having the bed visible in the background of my live streams was just a little, let's not do that. So now we have my empty bookshelves, which I have recently acquired because I got frustrated with not being able to find some of my reference material because it's in storage and it's going to be in storage for I don't know how long. So I hopped on Facebook Marketplace and found myself some bookshelves. And now I've got to go back up north, and Joshua likes your hat. He gives you a thumb up. Dinner sounds good. We did pork chops and salad, neither of which I cooked. I basically decided that I was done for the day, and I begged for help from my husband and my son. And now my husband is going to go do, I don't know what he's doing. He's going to go out and smoke on the balcony. Now the way he veered there, I was like, what is he getting off the bookshelf? Yes, they are currently very empty bookshelves. They've got some random stuff stacked on them from moving my desk around, which involved moving another bookshelf, which hasn't got any books on it. It's all office stuff. Anyhow, that my desk, a dresser that has my printer on it, which you can sort of see. That's the large format art printer that I never use for art. Ben, thank you. I'm glad you read that, and I'm really glad you liked it. It's It's still one of my favorites of my pieces. I started work on something yesterday. No, technically the day before. Which will be the sequel to the Case of the Perambulating Hat Rack. And of my recent stuff, Hat Rack is definitely my favorite. Joshua, putting a Kindle on the bookshelf and having all ebooks only works if you don't need some relatively obscure, not available on ebook titles. Also, I collect pulp fiction. Specifically, I tend to collect mysteries and science fiction that has really great covers. So I collect the pulp fiction more for the covers than for what's in it, because most of the time I can find pulp as it's already been put onto ebook. That's not always the case, and D. Jason Fleming, who's a friend of mine, is actually on the hunt for obscure pulp titles that did not get the copyright renewed, and he is annotating them and getting them online, which included recently one of my favorite authors when I was a teenager. He's got a title by William McLeod Rain. Now, William McLeod Rain was not a great author, but his storytelling is excellent. And at one point, I had laboriously collected probably 7 or 8 of his. He wrote a lot, but given that I was collecting this stuff based on what I could find in antique shops and junk stores and used bookstores, from Alaska to Oregon to New Hampshire, it's pretty remarkable that I was able to actually find that many of them. Joshua, we have enough Louis L'Amour in paper, both paperbacks and some of the hardbacks, to fill a 3-foot wide, 6 shelf high bookshelf. At one point, Sanford was reading mostly in paper. He's switched over to now he reads on his phone most of the time. But when he was reading in paper, the Louis L'Amour paperbacks stick in a pocket really nicely. So we had gotten a bunch of those, and then I was slowly trying to make sure that we had every single L'Amour that's in print in paper. And as a result, we have quite a few duplicates because I was buying lots on eBay for a while. So the interesting thing is, and this is fascinating to me because it speaks to me on a marketing level and an authorial level, which is that Louis L'Amour is really hard to find unless you're specifically buying Louis L'Amour. So I could go on eBay and buy lots of Louis L'Amour, 10 or 12 books at a time, and they weren't cheap, mind you, for little tiny paperbacks, mass market paperbacks. But if I went to my favorite used bookstores, they might have a couple of Louis L'Amour titles, but that was it. Very, very rare that I could find Louis L'Amours in used bookstores. And I don't think I've seen one in a thrift shop or that kind of thing where there's like usually a bunch of cheap books. I haven't seen those for a long time. The closest I did come, and I was so tempted and I wound up not pulling the trigger on it because it was a little more than I could afford at the time, was the leather-bound ones. I found a ton of those, almost the whole set, at a flea market. But it was well over $100 and I just couldn't do it. And I don't really regret that because I just didn't have the funds at the time. And now we have actually started to acquire Louis L'Amour in ebook because Sanford is more likely to read ebook than paper at this point. And yes, making brownies sounds wonderful. No, I'm not going to do it. The holidays are going to be rough enough on my figure as it is. I do need to make cookies or something and take them to work, though. Not quite sure when. Friday, with the work Christmas party after work, That day is pretty much shot for me. I'm going to come home and do a really weird thing for me, but I'm going to put on makeup because cosmetic chemist, and when I'm in the lab, I have an excuse. I'm not supposed to wear makeup. But since I'm putting on a nice dress to go to this party, and my boss and I have been joking about it because we're basically going as each other's plus one. She asked me if I thought my husband would want to go, and I'm like, no, I love him. I won't do that to him. Yeah, he doesn't do parties, and this really isn't. This is going to be more of a networking event. Um, Josh Sanford would probably know which one took place in the New Mexico boot heel. I do not know that off the top of my head. Mom, I could organize cookies for the coworkers, but so far as I know, I'm the only one that actually bakes and enjoys baking. So I have one coworker that doesn't like sweet stuff at all. He ate a piece of his own birthday cake under protest. So for him, I'm going to have to come up with something savory. Hondo. Hondo is the one that takes place in New Mexico. What was it? Sanford and I were just having a conversation about Louis L'Amour and using a L'Amour as an inspiration for a story. And it was one of the Sackets. I don't remember off the top of my head. But although that does kind of remind me of the first topic that I had intended to talk about, which is that I am working on a new coloring book / illustrated storybook. I'm doing and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation because Ian was pronouncing it beautifully, and the Rattle saga. Rattle. He pronounces it rattle, which I think is probably more correct than me putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. So the Rattle saga, which is one of Ian's childhood stories of Africa, he originally posted that on his blog in 6 parts back in, golly, it's been a while. I don't remember what the date was on those, 5 or 6 years, I think. And then it was in his book, The Africa Adventures, which is currently not in print, but he's gotten the rights back, so we can work on this, doing the illustrations for the Rattle saga. Yes, Honey Badger. That is going to be so much fun to draw. The first couple of illustrations have involved boys digging holes, boys getting help to dig holes, and how to identify a harmless little green vine snake versus a green mamba. And looking at photos of them, I can see how the boys confused one for the other now. They're really close. So, straight substitution of butter for peanut butter koala isn't going to work. Peanut butter has a lot more solids in it, and you're going to wind up with... That's not going to be good. So... Oh, no. His telling of any tale is so much better in person. I mean, the man is really talented both at storytelling verbally and at writing, which is actually fairly rare. So it's pretty remarkable to get to hear him in person. He and Jim Curtis, who's an old NFO, do live streams twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so if you are not familiar with them, which I think everybody listening is probably quite familiar, but if not, then go check them out because it's worth it to get the two of them storytelling. So that's my big project right now, and the fun thing about it is that I have never been to Nigeria and actually don't know a whole lot about it. So researching for drawing these pictures involves me finding photo references. So, I mean, photo references for green mamba and the green vine snake wasn't too difficult, except for there's an Indonesian green vine snake that looks different, very different. It's got a little leaf nose thing going on. And the African version has a little snub nose, pug nose. So once I figured out that I was looking at the wrong snake species, that was good. But the fun thing was trying to find pictures of people digging a deep pit. And because of how Ian had described it in the story, I went looking for grave diggers. Let me tell you. Josh, we're going to have to rectify that one of these days. If you Google Gravedigger, there's evidently a monster truck called Gravedigger. So all you're going to get are pictures of this monster truck and the children's toys that have been based off of it. And putting in Gravedigger on dirt or in dirt doesn't help any, because then you just get pictures of the toy dirt that you can buy to go with your toy Gravedigger. However, once I finally figured out the proper search string to get results that I wanted, Koala, I love that the two of you are communicating through a live stream that's happening 1,000 miles away. Once I got the search string right and got results that I wanted, I was delighted to discover that there are grave digging competitions in at least Hungary and Slovakia, because those are some of the photo images that I used to draw people digging essentially a grave, a tiger trap. Right, so Alec was getting all kinds of crazy results when I first started searching for that. So this, I can already tell that this is going to be an entertaining thing to illustrate. It's going to stretch my skills a lot. Oh, and there's a child slinking into the back of the room. I'm not sure why he came in here. He knows I'm on a live stream.
Cat.
Oh, he came in for the cat, he says. Hey, kid, could you come over here close enough so they can read your shirt? So his t-shirt's really cute.
Got it at Spencer's. I shouldn't have been in there.
It's the toe bean control system, and it gives, you probably can't read those, but they're all things you can press on a cat's paw to have different actions happen. So, thank you.
Send the cat far out of your room.
Yes, dear. Sometimes the cat hides in our closet, and then when we close the door, it becomes a problem. She'll pop out in about 2 minutes, now that the door is closed. Anyhow, I'm going to be doing a lot of natural history of Nigeria. I need to be able to draw the schematics for a working ballista. This is going to be a fun project. Sapper lizards is going to be an entirely different book. So we're looking at sapper lizards and astro lizards and the saga of squeaks, I believe, as another book. When I started talking to him about this, we were talking about doing I Was a Teenage African Warlord, which we have decided we're going to hold off on that one and see if it can't be boulderized so that it's slightly less politically incorrect than it is in its current form. So if we do that one, that'll be late next year. I know Sanford doesn't want any changes, but I actually think it could be made into a really fun, kind of cute story. Not that I'm going to cutesy it, but I think that it can be tamed down a little bit, but we'll see. And that's up to Ian, too. Yeah, I don't think I want to travel to Africa right now, but yes, otherwise that would probably be interesting. One of the people I follow on Instagram, he's a botanist, and he was recently, not recently, but in the last few months, he was in South Africa for several weeks, looking at different botanical areas and taking a ton of pictures. And he's been posting them on Instagram for a couple of months now, and it's just amazing. So I have been just all the succulents and orchids and yeah. Of course, I say this again, the last time I was at the Botanical Gardens and took a bunch of photos there, Second shelf down on the bookshelf behind me is my big camera, and I have not yet downloaded all those photos I took. Joshua, I am not sure whether or not any of these can really be children's books. The Rattle Saga probably will be, but it's definitely going to be PG. Squeaks, I don't remember what else. I think Squeaks falls into a drink at some point. It's been a while since I've read it. I'm focused on Rattel right now, so I hadn't gone back and looked at that. I have also been approached about illustrating something else. I never intended to become an illustrator. This was not on my radar.
You started it.
I know I started it. I started it just because I was trying to amuse Ian. He had pretty down. Afghanistan was not good for him. But it's well, I started it before that too, because I mean Inktail was never a story per se, although I should probably make a story about it. But then I did the One Hungry Werewolf with Jimmy Buys, and that was a blast. Okay, I'll have to take a look at that story, see what can be done with it. Anyhow, so I never meant to become an illustrator, and yet here I am. So, on the other hand, I did write a little bit last week. I keep telling people I'm quitting writing, and nobody believes me. I don't know why that is. One of the things that drawing childhood memories of somebody else is making me think about is my own childhood memories. And for some reason, and I don't know exactly why, because it's certainly not connected to childhood in Africa, is I was thinking the other day about spending a good part of my childhood in the creek. And the adventures that I had damming up creeks and well, okay, this wasn't a creek, but when I was young, we used to catch the crawdads in the North Fork Siuslaw River, which is not terribly big, where we would get them just a little bit up from my grandma's house. There was a picnic area, and we do family picnics there. And us kids would all get let loose to go out in the river and swim and wade and hunt crawdads until we had a pot full of crawdads, and then they'd get boiled along with other food, and we'd have a picnic. But as I told Julian Thompson this not too long ago, and he didn't believe me, I had to show him a picture. Western crawdads are red. They don't turn red after they're boiled. They're already red. So that actually makes it pretty easy for a kid to, especially one that knows how to swim with their eyes open, to track them down in the river. If you can flush them out from under the rock, you can find them. But I was also thinking about some of the stuff that I've done and squishing through swampy creeks with the swamp gas coming up around me. And just the smell of it just came back to me. And it's funny because I'll often have these thoughts in streams of consciousness while I'm driving, because I think I don't have a lot of interruptions there. Same thing with showers and whatnot. You're kind of held captive by your body, but your brain's like going all over the place. But yeah, that was one of those. I was just like, oh, swamp gas, ee. And that was the other thing we used to do. We used to catch freshwater mussels, and I've since found out that this was not a good thing to do, but we used to use our toes to dig up the freshwater mussels out of the mud in the creek, and then we would take those home and eat them. And I've since found out that freshwater mussels are endangered, if not threatened, and that really shouldn't be done. So don't do that. If you have freshwater mussels, leave them alone. Drunken horse smuggler. The smuggler had a horse, or the horse was smuggling? Questions. Also, now I kind of want to draw a drunk horse. Oh, that was a fun one, and I'm gonna have to get it because I've since found out that it actually probably tastes good. So, when I was a kid, there was a couple of movies that we watched, and okay, I do remember both titles. So, there's and I mean, these are the cheesiest things with the most awful special effects, but they're fantastic. And if you've never seen one, I have no idea if they're still available out there. I haven't watched it in years. But, so there's two of them. One's called Animals Are Beautiful People, and the other one's called The Gods Must Be Crazy. And they are both hilarious. And for a little girl who was obsessed with Gerald Durrell and zoos and animals and plants, they were fantastic. I mean, I just loved that glimpse of the African flora and fauna and just the dry humor in them. I mean, Gods Must Be Crazy, I can remember laughing myself sick until I hurt from that movie. But Animals Are Beautiful People has those moments too. It's kind of like a documentary with a lot of humor. I completely lost. Oh yes, right, the drunk elephants. So there's a fruit tree in Africa that produces what's called marula fruit, or it might be the marula tree. I'll have to look that up one of these days. And when the marula fruit drop, it ferments, and the animals come and eat it, which they're going to do with any dropped fruit because there's a couple of things going on there. It's not just the fermentation. They're not there to get drunk. I'm not even sure if animals enjoy being drunk. However, I've seen this happen with apple trees as well. When the fruit drops, the process of decomposition actually makes it sweeter for a while before it starts to really go off. So there's that transition from it falls off the tree and the sugars fully develop, and at that point the fermentation process starts. So what the critters are there for is the sugar, because most animals love sugar because it's energy they don't have to expend to break the food down into sugars. Oh my gosh, brownie cheesecake. Yes, that is a thing, and yes, I like that. I don't do a full cheesecake when I'm doing cheesecake brownies. I do a pseudo cheesecake, and then just like swirl it through the tops. But it's just a really simple, like cream cheese and egg and sugar beaten together, rather than the full cheesecake. So all of this came back to me about The Gods Must Be Crazy and Animals Are Beautiful People and The Drunk Elephants because A, Peter Grant will occasionally talk about it and will make jokes about it. And B, somebody recently said that that doesn't actually happen, which is false because Peter has talked to me about having seen it with his own eyes. And also being a little worried about it because, yeah, drunk elephants, I'm sure, a menace. So when I was in the liquor store looking for, it's not Bailey's, it's an Irish cream, but we actually prefer this one to Bailey's. It's also cheaper, which is nice. But it's made with Quiet Man whiskey. It's called St. Brendan's?
St. Brendan's.
St. Brendan's. And so I was looking for that because we really like that in either coffee or tea. It has a really nice flavor and feeling to it. But right next to it on the shelf was a bottle of liqueur that was called Amarula. And it was spelled like marula. And I looked at it, and then I looked at the label, and sure enough, it's made from the marula fruit. So I took a picture of it to share with my African friends. And I didn't buy any because I was like, this could be really, really bad. Fermented fruit, rank by itself, is not good taste. But one of my Facebook friends was talking about having tried it and that it had a really nice caramel note to it. And I'm like, ooh. So now I'm going to have to go back and find that to give it a taste. We also found a walnut and honey liqueur that was actually really, really nice. When I buy this stuff, I've been sharing it with the group of friends because Sanford and I don't actually drink that much. And we'll buy things because they sound really interesting, like the Amarula, and we'll taste it, and then we might not get back to it for a while. Really long while. There's some bottles of booze in our stash that have been moved more than once. I do have a bottle of whiskey that I'm never going to open because I found finally a bottle of Writer's Tears whiskey and bought that because I had to. The only thing that would have been better, but I don't think it's distributed in the US at all, is Writer's Tears. So I have Writer's Tears Copper Pot, and there's another Writer's Tears called Redhead. And for obvious reasons, I would really like to have a bottle of that, but I'm not going to Ireland to get it. Yeah, I'd love to be able to travel to do things like go to Nigeria and take lots of pictures so I had my photo references. Or go back to Ireland because I really enjoyed Ireland when we were there. I'm not even going to say how many years ago because I was 18. Heck, I just want to go see my grandma in Oregon and take a bunch of pictures in the Rogue River Valley so I can set books there and write the whole thing off. But I don't know when I'm going to be able to travel again. My son and I were talking today. I will be at Fantasy in North Carolina in March of 2022. I'm a guest there. And I am probably going to attend TolCon. I need to reach out to them, see if I can't at least do some panels up there. But if not, I'm probably just going to go up for friends. I have friends up there, and a bunch of friends are going up. So that'll be fun. And there's a little Nauticon that'll be happening in Texas in April that I'll be doing. But that is sheer get-together, hang out. And other than that, I don't have any plans for cons in 2022 other than FenCon in September because I'm already set up for that. I've already booked 2 tables for Sanderson Studios and the North Texas Troublemakers. So that should be a blast. There was some of us there last year. It was my first time going and I was able to do some panels with them. Really enjoyed it. Nice folks. I am looking forward to going back to that one. And other than that, with the job, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to travel or how much I'll be able to take off. I convert from contract in January. So right now I am still in that tenuous, I don't know what's happening next year. I've already got clearance from my boss to take the time that I need for Fantasy, even though we haven't officially done the whole you're going to be fully employed here. She's treating me like I am, so hopefully that's a good sign. I also got pulled into the benefits meeting for choosing benefits packages for next year for full employees. So again, I think these are good signs. But it's all up in the air for a while yet, and I don't know, I tend to hesitate to make assumptions. I'd rather just be like, okay, whatever happens, happens, rather than count on something and then have it not happen. Part of what made the whole separation from Sanford so anxious was just that there was no end to it. We didn't know how long it was going to be. We didn't know anything, and that was a rough part of getting through that phase. And now it's really good. We're all together. We're trying to get the kid through school, and then he can go off and do his own thing. And at that point, we should be settled enough to be able to get a house. I need to not get antsy about getting a house and just be patient. And that's hard for me. I don't do patient well. I tend to, when I want to do something, I tend to do it. Kind of like Koala and the Brownies. Oh. Actually, that's also... I said I was going to talk about German food. And was teased by having juxtaposed talking about my memories of swamp gas and German food in the same sentence, but they're not related, really. We were talking about doing German for the next time we're cooking for the writers get together. So I've done, the first time I did Italian, and I did a huge lasagna. Yeah, Josh, it's not good to be uncertain of the future. It's not a good place to be. And I completely understand where you're at, and there's really nothing you can do, which doesn't help any. But I'm talking about cooking for the group. I love to cook for people, so I tend to want to do things that are probably more than I should do, because I also have to transport these things for 2 hours before I'm at the event to start feeding people. So what we've done is I did a monster lasagna, which actually worked really, really well. 12-pound lasagna. There were actually leftovers. And I did a tiramisu along with that. And then Johan got involved because the kid likes to cook too. So we did katsudon and salad and sushi. And I pre-made the sushi rolls down here and traveled up with it. But we did the katsu up there, frying it, and that we will not do again. It made a mess, and I'm not going to do that to our kind host. Swamp gas is from Cajun food. German food gives Black Forest gas. Noted. Yes, there is a dog, and she is fussy, and I'm not sure why she's fussy, because she's actually laying here quietly on the floor. She's probably trying to get Sanford's attention, and because he has his headphones on and he's casting fireballs right at the moment, I will probably have to nudge him before he acknowledges that the dog would like his attention. So we've done... The dog always wants his attention. So we've done Italian food, we did Japanese, and then I took up and did chicken korma with samosas and naan, and that went over really well. And I did a garam masala pumpkin pie, which is pumpkin pie with garam masala instead of regular pumpkin pie spice. Dorothy Grant had done that because Peter doesn't like regular pumpkin pie, but he will eat this. So I took her recipe and used it. But, and now the dog's excited because she sees that he's getting ready to take her out.
Which is what she wanted.
So we've been discussing what we wanted to do for the next writers group feast. And I forget how it came up, but we were talking about doing German food, because basically we're like, okay, we're doing this slow world tour of food. And my son wants to do like a Korean hot pot. No, Sanford does not play World of Warcraft. He was playing...
That is an antique game.
He says it's an antique game. It was either Skyrim or Oblivion. I can't tell the difference between the two of them. The only other game that he currently plays is Return to Castle Wolfenstein. I'm not pronouncing that right, I'm sure. He played through Portal, and that was enough, and he put it aside. But Skyrim, which is the one where he casts fireballs, he plays a lot, and I think it has like side quests or something. It keeps him amused. It's his relaxation thing. And honestly, it's better than Wolfenstein, because Wolfenstein involves firing machine guns, and if you're asleep and all of a sudden the big monitor starts going flash, 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 it will wake you up. Yeah, it is pretty. What was it? My son was playing something that had some really pretty scenery in it. But I will sometimes sit and watch Sanford play Skyrim. I think it's Skyrim. Just because it's pretty, and I enjoy watching the scenery. I don't play computer games, so I can live vicariously through him. So German food, I keep wanting to talk about. Well, you might be edging up on Sanford in that case, Koala. I have no idea how many $1,000 he has into it. Um, but he's been unemployed since COVID hit, and he's played a lot of video games. Uh, actually, Mom, my car actually has a regular outlet, like a household outlet, because the car is designed for car camping. So yeah, I could actually just throw in an extension cord and keep everything going. Um, what I've been trying to do is plan for foods that either can be cooked up there or that will go in my Instant Pot or the rice cooker and can be transported up like that. And they're fine, they're fairly safe. I also have a cooler bag that I use for cold stuff, although I don't want to try and transport ice cream up there. Um, no, the plan, yeah, not schnitzel, Doug, because schnitzel's what we did when we did the katsu with the fried breaded meat. That was basically schnitzel. Um, so what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is a play on rouladen. I'm actually gonna do a stuffed pork loin, probably stuff it with I'm thinking probably a nice goat cheese and some herbs and maybe some apple, maybe dried apple or dried berries. Both of so those all play into some really German flavors. So I'm gonna take a pork loin and I'm gonna cut it and basically butterfly it out so that I can do this, and then I'll roll it up and tie it with string. This is something that I have done quite a few times. If you do it right, the cheese does not leak out. If you do it wrong, the cheese leaks out. So I'm going to do that, and what we were also discussing doing with it was what to do for a side dish. So Sanford was pushing for spätzle, and when I looked up how to make spätzle, I'm like, that's not happening. Because you're supposed to push the pasta dough through like a colander, metal colander or something. You push it through and it comes out the holes, and then you scrape it off into the boiling water. And you make it in batches. You cook it and you pull some out and you cook some more and you pull that out. And I'm like, that's going to be a hot mess if I do it. So, if I do spätzle, it'll be dried spätzle, and I will cook it up there. But when we were talking about what to put on the spätzle, and I'm thinking like a brown gravy, I have a gravy that I make that came out of a game cookbook or cooking game, and it's for cooking like pheasants or duck or something, and then you serve this gravy with it. And it's a really good gravy. It uses beef consomme and whatever drippings you have. So I was thinking I'd do that and something, I don't know, over the noodles. So we'll do a brown gravy sauce over the pork and the noodles. And Sanford informed me that there was something that he remembered that involved taking intestine and slicing it into rings. So kind of like calamari rings, but intestine. And then that got simmered up in a brown gravy and served over noodles. So out of morbid curiosity, I tried to find this recipe, and I could not. So, this is a small mystery that I'm wondering if anybody else has any idea what this is, because he says it's not the stuffed sow's stomach recipe that I found. That's more like haggis. It is literally slices of intestine, kind of like little calamari rings, and then it's simmered in a brown gravy and served over noodles. And he also told me that he didn't actually want that. It was just something he remembered from eating in Germany. And I'm just like, I can't find it. I mean, they've scrubbed it from the internet. It's that bad. So, Doug, the get-togethers I'm talking about are the weekly North Texas Troublemaker meetings, and you're welcome to join us, but it would be quite a hike. The other get together that I am talking about is in April. And again, you're welcome to come. That's a 3-day event. I will ping you offline because it's strictly invitation only. And pretty much anybody that's in the comments is invited. However, we don't want the general public to be aware of time and place and all that. I have had tripe, and I've actually had menudo, which is the Mexican preparation, and it is, you can taste, there's a certain flavor to offal that that's difficult to describe. It's kind of this musky, earthy. Now, see, mind you, I like liver, and there's actually times when I will crave liver. My go-to these days, normally to satisfy the craving, is Braunschweiger. And I will get a thing of Braunschweiger and go through that all by myself because nobody else in the house eats that stuff. But I don't tend to cook liver at home because the scent is offensive to everybody else. So I don't actually have a problem with eating organ meat. One of the sad things that we can't get down here is that we can't get chicken gizzards. So Lee's Chicken up in the Kentucky and Ohio area, which, by the way, was one of the original competitors to Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they're neck and neck as far as which one's better. But we would eat at Lee's when we were up in Ohio because we could get chicken gizzards. Now, I remember chicken gizzards as a childhood thing because my dad would take me to this little roadside shack and we'd get fried chicken, and we always got chicken gizzards, and I learned how to really like them. So when I show up in Ohio to visit Sanford, he was going to get me just regular fried chicken, and he was going to get a pint of gizzards for himself, and I'm like, ooh, they have gizzards. So yes, he learned quickly just how strange I am. So yeah, I've eaten steak and kidney pie in England. It was good. I've definitely eaten stomach because I've had haggis in Scotland, which I really liked. I'm not going to eat the tinned stuff you can get here in the U.S. though. And well, I've done enough butchering that you name it, I've probably eaten it. I still have not found goat at a reasonable price though. And I really, really need to get into a local carniceria and see if I can get goat at a decent price. But, because, the things I can do with goat. Yeah, if I can get some nice goat, I am going to cook the heck out of something for taking up to the gang. But yeah, no, as you can see, I inflict strange things on my family. Sometimes they eat them, sometimes they don't. I need to make Sanford a coconut cream pie. I haven't done that since he got here, and that's one of his favorites. I did make him blackberry cobbler. We had blackberry cobbler actually over our long weekend while Johan was down visiting his sisters. We had 4 days, just the two of us. It was our second honeymoon. We didn't really have a first honeymoon, so yeah. And I know everybody's minds just went in the gutter, but actually it was more eating and kicking back. And haggis and boudin are not the same. They're spiced differently. Joshua, I don't eat organ meat from a wild animal. But if I raised it, or if I'm getting it in the supermarket from critters that have been medicated all their lives, I don't mind eating organ meat. Yeah, right. And so because I'm known for my cooking and recipes on the internet, I sometimes get pinged for strange things. Today, it was a friend of mine with a mouse infestation and a picture of a sticky trap with several mice caught on it, asking me if I had a recipe for mouse. My response to this was, they're too much trouble to clean, better to feed them to the hogs and then eat the hog. Or the chickens, because the chickens will also dispose of mouse carcasses, and then you can eat the chickens or the eggs. Because that's the reality of how chickens and hogs work. They'll eat pretty much anything and turn it into food for you.
Dogs like them too.
Yeah, but you're not going to eat the dog.
That depends on how bad the situation gets.
Oh, and the other thing, I was talking to a friend about subsistence gardening. So, gardening in your backyard is not a terrible idea. You are highly unlikely to be able to grow enough there to survive on. Depends on the backyard, but we're talking about a fairly small suburban backyard. So if you're going to try and do, there's a book of recipes for mice. Why am I not surprised? If you're going to try and garden in a backyard or front yard, if your neighborhood will allow such a thing, you'll want to focus not on commodities. You don't want to try corn. Corn takes a lot of space and you get very low yield for your space. Potatoes, maybe, but probably not worth it. Carrots, peas, exception to that. Shelled peas, don't bother. Snow peas or snap peas, do bother, and there's a couple of reasons for that. But what you want to focus your little backyard garden on are the things that are more expensive and harder to get in the store, and can also be used to trade with people who might have more space and can grow some of the commodity crops. Yes, 5 Acres in Independence is actually excellent, Doug. And there are some more recent books. I think my mom talks about, there's a book out that actually shows how you can garden intensively on 1/10 of an acre, which includes the vertical gardening that Koala just mentioned, and you can actually live off that. It is a lot of work. The casual gardener that wants to be able to do other things other than just grow food is going to do best with herbs and spices, tomatoes, berries. Don't bother planting fruit trees or nut trees if you haven't got the space. Berries, you'll get a better yield faster. Nut trees can take up to 20 years to start bearing. Fruit trees, you're looking at least 3 to 4 to even start bearing, and probably 6 to 10 before you get decent yields out of them. If you have the space, fantastic. Espalier trees, so you're growing them up against a fence or against a wall, is actually also a method to be able to grow trees someplace where it's technically too cold for them. Zucchini is a toss-up for me. They take up quite a lot of space, and you will get heavy yield out of them, but I think I would use that space to grow other things than zucchini if I were in that position. Saffron, Josh, again with the actual space, because you have to harvest thousands and tens of thousands of strands of saffron in order to get anything significant. But basically what you want to look for is things that right, Mom, and there's ways to do fruit trees that aren't so bad, but I would say if I had to choose between fruit trees and berries, I would go with berries every time. Both if possible, but berries, again, bigger yield, faster growth too. You can get, if you buy raspberry canes, plants, they're primo canes, so you'll get berries the first year. Blackberries, you get berries on the second year canes. So the first year the cane grows, the second year it blooms, fruits, and dies. So you want to let your canes keep going, and so you'll have fruit every year once you get established. Yeah, and that's the other thing too that I was going to say about the backyard subsistence gardening is I actually wouldn't recommend chickens. I know a lot of people like chickens in their backyard garden, but I think what's probably better for meat is rabbits. You'll get manure for the garden and the rabbit meat and, in theory, the rabbit pelts. in reality, that's a whole different skill set and one I don't have. But the other thing is too, if you want eggs and birds, quail are the way to go. They're quiet, so your neighbors won't know that you have them. And they're fairly small, but they're not as aggressive at eating everything. Because chickens will turn a small backyard into a blighted wasteland in very little time. Ducks, if you have the space, they're very messy, but you'll get meat and you will get fat. And so I'm talking about planning for food's expensive, not for you must completely rely on what you can grow, and that's it. And if you were in that situation, then fat is very important. But that's probably a whole different topic and conversation. And I like asparagus. Plus, asparagus is kind of pretty once it goes out. It does take up a decent amount of space, and asparagus takes quite a while to get it established, and it feeds heavily, so you want lots of manure for it. And it has very deep roots. You want to prep an asparagus bed very, very well. But once you get asparagus established, it's actually one of the ways where you can find where there used to be a farmhouse. You'll find plots of asparagus that are still there, and the house has been gone for decades. Right, and I think if you have the space for chickens and you can keep them separate from the garden, having chickens for eggs is actually a really good idea, because eggs are, well, I mean, there's a reason I have a list on my blog of 99 ways to eat eggs, and it's not by any means comprehensive. Although, I should go back to it and do some more recipe links. There's a little project for cooking for the next few weeks. Eggs are reliably cheaper than most kinds of meats. Although recently, I mean, we picked up 10 pounds of ground beef the other day for $2 a pound, which I thought was pretty good. It was on sale, but we scoffed that up and shoved our freezer full of meat. We also picked up boneless, skinless chicken for $1.69 a pound. So I am keeping stocked what I can, but I don't have room to do a lot of it. I don't have the ability to have my chest freezer here. One of my friends is going to wind up with that on long-term loan until we can get a house again. Yeah, rhubarb is another one that can be used to find old homesteads. Once you establish rhubarb, it is there. If it likes the spot, it'll be there long after you're gone. So I am coming up to the end of my hour, and I think I've covered all my topics. If anyone listening to this comes up with whatever that German dish is, although I do think Koala's probably correct, it was probably a family special, because rings of intestine is not going to be to everyone's taste. But if you're watching this later and you know what it is, leave it in the comments. I'm very curious. I still have no intentions of making it. Even if it did cross my mind that I could buy a bag of casings, of natural casings. I had natural casings. I wonder what happened to those. I can't imagine we moved them from Ohio down here. I had gotten everything to make sausage because the kids were fascinated, and we did actually make sausage. We did just like loose bulk sausage. But then I got casings because we were going to do link sausage and never got around to it. So, hi, Dad. You got here just in time for me to be done. Well, next week, Friday. And unless y'all think Wednesday's better. But Friday is probably better for me because weekday nights tend to be a little crazy. I get home, I have to run errands, I have to do this and that and the other thing. So, I mean, this is part of the reason that I had Sanford cook dinner tonight, and thank you for that, love. And next week, Friday, the bookshelves behind me will not be full yet because I'm not going to go up to the storage unit this weekend. So it won't be until after that the bookshelves will get full. Yeah, well, rice and beans, Mom. Rice is tricky to grow, and beans, yes, but again with the whole space thing. Um, and I mean, I can remember growing dried beans and growing them up the corn, and that was fun to harvest, but they took a lot of space. So, well, in that case, Joshua, Friday it is. um, Friday's better for me, just sheer mental spaceness. Wednesday mornings I get up and I hop right on the computer to do the more odds than ends prompt post. Which, by the way, if y'all know where that is, it's more odds than ends blog. And the odd prompts have been going on for almost 2 solid years. And I have put it out for a vote to see if we want to go on for another year. There's a small but dedicated group that participates. There's 3 or 4 of us that work on it in the back end to keep it running, so it's not all on me. However, I don't want to keep going if there's not interest. So it's not strictly writing prompts, it's prompts for creativity, so it could be art or anything else. So, Mom, I keep alarms on my phone for live streams I want to see, so that helps me remember. And then I remind my husband, because if he wants to see the same one, he doesn't remember. All right. Uh-huh. Well, it was nice to talk to you all, and I actually picked topics and stayed on them. I'm proud of myself. And I think the new backdrop behind me is better than what I was doing before, so now I have no bed in the background, which is just, I don't know, it bothered me. Probably didn't bother any of y'all. Plus, as my husband pointed out, if I do this, then I don't have to make the bed. Well, folks, it's been an hour, and it has been pleasant. So thank you for coming and commenting and participating. And I will see you next week on Friday.